Welcome to my classroom. Today's daily dose of math is for the Math 3051 course, that's algebraic modeling. And this question is meant to be a task. A task is one of the big questions on the exam that is worth a lot. In this case, it's about 26 or 27 marks. And it's not necessarily a harder question, it's just one that requires more steps. Let's start by reading the question that we have in front of us. We have D, who starts with $20 and spends $2 per hour. E starts with $15 and spends $1 per hour. F starts with $0 and earns $2.50 per hour. At the time that D and E have the same amount, is that amount more than F has? Now, I'm going to answer this question twice, once on the left side of the chalkboard and again on the right side. On the left side, I'm going to answer it with a graph. And on the right side, I'm going to answer it with algebra. The point is that algebra gives more exact answers, but if a student is having difficulty in an exam question trying to give an algebra answer, that student should not just give up partway through. Another thing to try is to use a graph to answer the question. It is a perfectly valid method and gets an answer that's almost as good. One of the things that I'm noticing in this situation is I have $2 per hour, $1 per hour, and $2.50 per hour. This is very important because when I see that unit/other unit, the dollars per hour, it tells me that this is probably linear. And the first thing that the student has to do in this course is prove whether they're dealing with a linear or an inverse situation. The dollars per hour is a hint that it's linear, but when I see that number in there, the $2 per hour or the $1 per hour, then I know for sure it's linear because that is a constant rate. And I'm going to say so. Once I stop being in slow motion and start answering my question, I'm going to prove that I have a linear situation by pointing out that I have been given units with a constant rate. I'm also going to point out to you that I'm going to make a mistake in my answers, both answers for this question. But I decided to leave the answers in because that way we can talk about how mistakes affect the way the student receives marks. So the first thing that I'm writing is that $2 per hour, $1 per hour, and $2.50 per hour are all constant rates. Therefore, this is a linear situation. And now I can get started trying to build a graph so that I can answer it. And the way to build a graph is to make a table of values. Now, the information in the question tells me a point for each of D, E, and F. And I start by building my table of values with that point. In each case, it's the y-intercept. For D, I started with $20, so I have the point 0, 20. For E, started with $15, so we have the point 0, 15. For F, we started with $0, so we have the point 0, 0. Another thing that's very useful about this $2 per hour, etc., is it's telling me how to label the axes in my graph. The dollars will be on the y-axis and the hours will be on the x-axis. But I also need a second point for each of the three straight lines. So for D, I'm dividing the $20 by the $2 per hour and I'm getting 10 hours. It will take D 10 hours to run out of money. For E, 15 divided by 1 is 15. It will take E 15 hours to run out of money. That tells me the x-intercepts for both of them. For F, I have to choose a number and plug it into the situation. And I chose 6 hours. 6 hours times the $2.50 per hour gives me 15. So I have the point 615 for F. Now, I'm scaling my axes. I decided to go up to 20 for both because that will be giving me enough information to answer the question. And I am labeling the axes with dollars on the y-axis and hours on the y-axis. Dollars on the y-axis and hours on the x-axis. And I'm able to draw lines between these intercepts for D and E. And for F, I'm drawing a line between 0, 0 and 6, 15. Here comes the line. And I may as well label that point on the graph because the other ones are quite obvious because they're intercepts, but the 615 is not an intercept. Now I'm ready to answer my question. I'm able to show the point of intersection between D and E, which is the point at which they have the same amount of money. And I'm able to show that F would have a little bit more there, and I'm showing that with the arrows. Now I'm writing my answer, and this is the point where I'm going to make a mistake. I'm saying yes, but this is because I changed the way I phrased the question as I was partway through making the question on the chalkboard, and I forgot that I had done that. So I meant no. No, D and E will have, and I'm reading off the graph and I'm saying they will have about $11 each at the point when they have the same amount of money. And F will have about $12. So no, D and E will not have more money than F has. This answer is complete, and except for that one little mistake, it's going to get a very high mark. But we'll talk about the marks a little bit more later. Now, I want to talk about how I'm going to answer the question again on the right side of the chalkboard. Oh, the teacher is waving a student away. There's students in the classroom right now while I'm filming this, and I'm telling a student, okay, could you just wait a couple of minutes because I'm filming right now. And now I'm going to start answering the algebraic answer to the question. Now the first step is the same. If you're answering with algebra, you still have to be able to justify whether you know it's linear or inverse. So I'm saying the same thing. $2 per hour, $1 per hour, and $2.50 per hour are all constant rates. Therefore, I know that this is a linear situation. But at that point, my strategy changes. This time, I'm going to make equations for D, E, and F. And in fact, all the information I need to make those equations is given in the question. So for D, I'm writing an equation which is y equals negative 2x plus 20. The 20 is the $20 that D started with. The 2 is the $2 per hour that D is spending. And this is where it becomes a little tricky because the student has to realize it's negative 2 because the amount of money that D has keeps on going down because D is spending money. For E, I have y equals negative x plus 15 for the same reasons. And for F, I have a positive slope because F is earning money. So I have y equals 2.5x. And the y-intercept for F is 0. So it's y equals 2.5x or y equals 2.5x plus 0. Now to find out where D and E have the same amount of money, I have to do comparison. So I'm writing negative 2x plus 20 equals negative x plus 15, and I'm solving for x. I get 5. I forgot to write the unit, but it's 5 hours. Now, to find out how much money they have after 5 hours, I plug x equals 5 into one of the equations, and I get $10. So therefore, after 5 hours, both D and E have $10. Now I need to figure out how many dollars will F have after 5 hours. There, I just remembered to write my unit of measure for the hours. And now I'm plugging 5 into F's equation. 2.5 times 5 is 12.5. That means F has $12.50. We've already established that D and E both have exactly $10. So now we're able to answer the question the same way. I still have my mistake where I'm saying yes instead of no, but everything else in the answers is correct. But this time, the answers are more exact. D and E will have exactly $10 after 5 hours, and F will have exactly $12.50. So we can talk about how we give marks and how we lose marks when we're answering a task. One thing to notice is the algebraic answer on the right will earn slightly more marks because the numbers are exact in the answer. But both of these questions will lose a couple of marks because the person wrote yes when they meant no. Then there's this issue about the constant rate. If either of these answers had forgotten to justify that it was linear by mentioning the constant rate, the algebraic answer would lose more marks than the other one, the graphical one, because the reason that we want the student to justify they have a linear or an inverse is the student is analyzing the situation. This does analyze the situation, but if you forgot to do it, the algebraic answer no longer has that analysis and loses quite a few marks. The graphical answer has a graph though, and graphs also count for analyzing the situation. Well, now we come to the end of the question. That is today's Daily Dose of Math. Please hit that like button, subscribe if you're not subscribed, and feel free to share this video. And I'll catch you at the next one.